Welcome back to You're All Doomed, the podcast that slices and dices its way through Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, 13 minutes at a time. I am one of your hosts, Brian.
I'm Greg, the Gargantuan Throngar.
This chunk begins with a nondescript image of the woods and ends with a nondescript image of the lakeshore.
Dan is wandering around like a doofus. He gets a little bit scared when he hears a snapping twig, but frankly, I think he ought to be much more concerned with the prominent mole that's on his face.
Might want to get that checked out.
Yeah, totally. He chops up some branches with his machete and heads back to camp, but he's stalked by a heavy-breathing POV shot.
Yeah, it's like Jason sneaking up behind him, and he's like, I'm gonna tickle you.
Yeah, but in kind of a total bitch move, Jason punches through Dan from the back and then snaps his neck. Dan never even knew what hit him. This is unusual for Jason. He usually likes his prey to at least see what's coming, sometimes too far in the other extreme, but this kind of ambush assault is a little bit different for him.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention that last season we discussed whether or not it's even possible to punch through a torso, but here's Jason doing it again.
Poor Dan was played by Michael Schroeder. This was his only acting credit. Apparently he left the business and went into law as well as a teaching gig. But importantly, Dan's demise has now armed Jason with a machete. We cut to the tent, where Judy is awaiting her big hunk of a man in the sleeping bag. She does seem to have taken off the rest of her clothes at this point. She sees a pair of legs and feet stomping around the campsite, but still thinks it's Dan, even though that's not what he was wearing earlier.
But it is a big hunk of a man.
She's not wrong. She twigs to the fact that it's not Dan when a machete hacks through the tent over her head and Jason pops through. Rather foolishly, in a panic, she zips herself up in the sleeping bag. This gives Jason the opportunity to drag her over to a tree and kapow! Smacks her against the tree in the most glorious moment in the entire franchise.
Without question, it is the kill. If we do a list at the end of this podcast where we talk about best kills, I'm spoiling it right now. This is going to be the top of the list for both of us because it is a beaut.
And I mean, I very clearly remember seeing that moment for the first time and just exploding with cheer. It was marvelous. Watching in slow motion, it's actually a little bit deceptive. He does not smack her against the big tree in the background. Instead, there's a fairly sturdy but much thinner trunk that's just in front of the big tree, but it's framed in such a way that it's really difficult to see. So it robs it of some of the impact if you watch it in slow motion. But nonetheless, Jason just smacked someone in a sleeping bag against a tree.
Well, I mean, you don't stand a chance regardless of the size of the tree, but I'm wondering if the smaller tree is actually worse because your body is going to bend around the trunk more.
Oh, true.
So there's more kind of twisting of the body in addition to all the blunt force trauma. But I mean, either way, you're fucked. But
yeah.
It is just a bone crunching kill. It just makes me like grimace in my seat every time I watch it.
And it's humorous in the right way. I laugh out loud while cringing at the same time.
Right. It's the absurdity of like picking someone up in a sleeping bag and swinging them like a baseball bat against a tree. Like that in itself is pretty funny. But then when the impact happens, you're just like, oh wait, that's not funny. That's
yeah. And clearly Jason he's fucking pissed off. We do get a brief shot of Judy's face falling out of the sleeping bag. There's some blood and a gash or two on it, and some blood on the sleeping bag, but it could have been a lot more gory based on the impact that she suffered. Apparently, this kill was heavily censored. It was originally 6 hits against the tree.
I couldn't imagine.
I think I like it this way better.
I agree.
It's so much more sudden, and I think that would have tipped it too far into like screwball comedy almost.
Yeah, the one kind of just devastating blow was way more impactful than just like 6 consecutive hits.
Yeah, I almost couldn't believe what I had just seen. Judy was played by Deborah Kessler. This was her only acting credit, and she has virtually no footprint online. For such an iconic kill, I'm surprised that there isn't a lot more information about her.
She left a pretty big torso imprint on the tree, though.
We're seeing a lot of Jason here. Aside from the rotted appearance that we discussed earlier, I'm also seeing this kind of hulking breathing technique that the actor playing Jason is using to imbue Jason with a little bit more life and fury. It's pretty cool.
The next morning, we go back to the party house, and Mandy, Robin, and a girl named Kate are making breakfast. And Eddie is talking to them about a movie he saw called The Battle of the Gargantuan Throngar, and how it's some work of genius. The girls, of course, are skeptical, so Eddie says, "Hey, don't take my word for it. Ask Ben. He was there." Ben walks into the room, and he has no idea what Eddie is talking about, and Eddie gets really embarrassed and storms off. And I'm really confused by this scene because Eddie is convinced that Ben went to see this movie with them, but when he brings it up, Ben just plays dumb. So was Eddie just hoping that Betty would be his wingman there and play along, or was he really mistaken about Ben going to the movie with him?
Or was Ben a fellow nerd with Eddie, but now that he's got a girlfriend and these new people that he's hanging out with, is he sort of pretending that wasn't him to make a better impression on these new friends, and he's sort of leaving his old pal Eddie in the lurch?
Or are Ben and Eddie sleeping with each other?
Oh, yeah, that could very well be.
No, I actually like your explanation better. So you're saying that Ben is trying to play it cool in front of Kate by saying, no, I would never go see a movie like that. But in turn, he's
stabbing his buddy in the back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone is still kind of wondering where birthday boy Michael is, but his cousin Nick is completely unconcerned because he's gone next door and is now tossing rocks in the lake with Tina. We learn a little bit more about Nick here. He reveals that he has a bit of a bad boy background, but he's heroically trying to turn his life around by going to night school and wearing denim.
Also known as a Texas tuxedo.
While Nick and Tina are chatting, evil snooty bitch Melissa poorly spies on them. There's no way they wouldn't spot her. She sticks out like a sore thumb. But Nick learns that Tina's dad died here years ago, so Tina is sharing her own tragic backstory. There's a lot of awkward flirting and a brief kiss, so they're forging a little bit of a bond.
A little bit later in the day, some people are outside barbecuing of the party house, and the rest of the people have gathered in the living room to smoke some of David's weed. Melissa and Eddie have conspired to play a trick on Tina by pretending that Eddie is wearing a straitjacket. And Melissa's like, "Hey, Tina, isn't this how they wear jackets at the mental hospital?" And this obviously pisses Tina off, and she uses her Tina powers to break Melissa's precious pearl necklace and scatter it all over the room.
She then runs out the front door yet again, just as Nick arrives from upstairs. So it was strange to me that no one seemed to know where Nick was, even though he was on the second floor the whole time. And I also thought it was weird that Tina wandered back into the house like the previous night's embarrassing moment had never happened. Why did she feel comfortable walking back into a house that she had tearfully run out of last night and then yet again runs out the front door
Yeah,
here?
like giving them another chance or something. But no, it doesn't really add up that she would go back there after what she experienced.
There's also a little bit of a cutting exchange between Maddie and her friend Robin. They're discussing their attraction to the druggy David, but Maddie gets totally dork shamed. Robin really cuts her down based on her appearance in kind of a nasty way, and then bounds off to go smoke weed with David because she's certain that she's so much hotter.
That night at Tina's house, Tina's still upset by what she did to Melissa's necklace, and she just doesn't understand why Dr. Cruz knows that she has these powers, yet she doesn't believe that she saw a man in the lake and that man eventually kills someone. So she just wants to leave. And Dr. Cruz gets angry because he doesn't want Tina to end up in a mental hospital again and that there's still treatment to complete. So once again, she uses her Tina power to throw a TV across the room, which narrowly misses Dr. Cruz's head.
The TV is a Sony KV-1310. Was introduced in Japan in 1968 and was their first Trinitron color set. It came to the United States a year later. This model was a 12-inch screen and at the time cost about $300, which is $2,200 in today's money. The poster is the new 20th Century Limited for New York Central Railroad, advertising a trip from New York to Chicago in only 16 hours. The 20th Century Limited debuted in 1902 as the New York Central's luxury train, and it made its journey along the Hudson River and the shores of Lake Erie on the smooth, water-level route. This poster was created in 1938 by Leslie Reagan.
It's been at least 30 seconds since Tina has run out of any house, so she runs outside where she's conveniently met by Nick on the front porch. And the first thing she thinks to ask Nick is if his cousin Michael ever showed up, and obviously he hasn't. And Nick pulls out his wallet and has a picture of his cousin in his wallet. So maybe he's related to Roy and they have the same wallet habits. But anyway, Nick has a picture of Michael in his wallet, and this is the same guy that Tina saw in her vision. And she tells Nick that she hates to say it, but she thinks Michael is dead. And at this point, Tina's mom comes downstairs to tell Tina to pack her things and that they're going to leave in the morning.
They both depart, leaving poor Nick to stand on the back porch, wondering what the fuck is going on, and having just been told that his beloved cousin, so beloved that he carries a photo around with him, may very well be dead.
Sorry, Nick, gotta go, gotta pack.
Yeah. Back at the party house, Sandra and Russell take a little stroll down to the lake, and Sandra flat out admits that she only likes him for his money, but strips down for some nighttime skinny dipping, despite the fact that Crystal Lake looks disgusting and fucking cold.
Yeah, it does.
The bank is just kind of this muddy swamp, so the alluring aspects of skinny dipping continue to elude me. She dunks under the water after some very embarrassing seduction, and while she's submerged, misses seeing Jason come out of the woods from behind a tree and hack Russell in the face with a machete. This kill was heavily edited, but is still so gross and gory that the crew called it Coochie Face.
Oh, God.
Delightful. Russell was played by Larry Cox, who had appeared on Family Ties, Knots Landing, and Who's the Boss. Movie-wise, he appeared in Heathers and The Majestic. Lots of TV credits up to 2002. Most importantly, he played a minor character on an episode of Friends, The One That Could Have Been. We will, in fact, be returning to that episode a bit later. Sandra pops back up to see Russell's body lying on the shore with his face cleaved in two. She freaks out, and moments later, Jason explodes from the water 6 feet away from her. He's a master of stealth swimming.
Yeah, I counted this. In the span of 7 seconds, Jason manages to sneak away from the shore, get into the lake, and swim out about at least 20 feet without getting noticed. 7 seconds.
Well, he just covered 10 miles in the span of half an hour, so he's obviously got some reality shifting powers that we weren't aware of.
Good point.
We get some Jaws-esque shots of Sandra from below as Jason grabs her leg and drags her down, presumably to drown her. Sandra was played by Heidi Kozak. Before this, she was also on an episode of Silver Spoons and Growing Pains, and appeared in Slumber Party Massacre 2 with Juliette Cummins, who played a girl in Part 5, The New Beginning. Heidi Kozak went on to appear in a fucked up movie called Society, which was released in 1989, and had a recurring role on Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman. After acting, she started a company that made some icebreaker-type party games, which she then sold to the Melissa and Doug Toy Company in 2012.
Back at the party house, we had discussed a little bit earlier about some potential tension between Ben and Kate, and at this point we learn that apparently they used to date, and now they're having problems like we're supposed to care.
They don't even establish why they're fighting.
No, or again, why we're supposed to care. Eddie is acting out some weird mummy scene by himself elsewhere in the room, and David is dancing with Robin, and he says to her, "You know what I like about you? You hardly sweat at all." I don't know. The guy's either had some issues with sweaty girls, or he thinks that's going to work as a come on line. But either way, Maddie, who has already expressed her interest in David, isn't thrilled by what she's seeing with Robin and David dancing. So she goes upstairs and starts to put on some makeup. And Nick is busy trying to get a hold of Michael. I don't know where he's trying to call him, like on his cell phone or something, but he's obviously freaked out by what Tina said, and he's trying to track him down.
I got a kick out of Maddie trying to glam herself up. It's almost like she's never even seen cosmetics before, like she's a visitor from another planet who landed in a Sephora or something. It's crazy. Step one is lose those glasses, nerd.
This chunk ends with some waves lapping up on the lakeshore, but we're going to have to wait till next week to find out what's going on down at the lake. So until then, you are all doomed.